Okay, so we've got our first word, sat, and probably you get the children to read it together, probably identify the phonemes in turn, and then you'd say, we're going to change sat, and we're going to make the word sit. Who could make the word sit? You get the idea. Then we're going to change it and make the word sip. You make the word sip. While you're doing this, you might want the children to think about the blending process. So you might say, put the letters very close together. Stand close to your friend. You might say, hold hands with your friend to make sure that these phonemes are blended together. Now we're going to change, can you make the word tip? And the next word is tap. Carry on. I wonder if we could make the word sap. Sap. And all through this activity, you would be blending. You would be checking the children were able to blend. Have children coming up, running their finger under the words, pushing them together, making their friends hold hands, until you get back to the word sat, which is full circle. So let's make full circle. Put the letters together, and we make the word sat. So that's full circle. Thank you very much to my volunteers for the full circle activity. That question I posed you, how could you extend that? Once children understand that there's a sequence of words, you go from the original word through a range of words back to your original word. You could use it with CCVC words or CVCC words, or you would be working towards children's ability to place a full circle independently. Go from sat to sat in 6 moves in your group, and then come and show us, the rest of the class, how you did that. Once the children know how to play that game, then they're able to do it independently. All your phonics teaching is aimed towards the application of children's knowledge on meaningful texts. You don't want the children in your class to know all their sounds, but still not to be able to read. So at every stage, you must apply what children know to meaningful texts. You need a range of ways of engaging with big books. Using post-it notes to mask words is a really effective way of doing it. Here's Mr. Gumpy's outing. This is Mr. Gumpy. Mr. Gumpy owned a boat, and his house was by a river. One day, Mr. Gumpy went out in his... Well, aren't you clever? How did you know that was the word boat? Because I've covered the word boat up. If it's the word boat, what sound can you hear at the beginning of the word boat? So what letter would you expect to see? So then you can really ham it up and have some drama about, shall I peel the sticky away? Who'd like to come and help me? Shall we see if it's really the letter B behind here? And so on through the word. You could blend the phonemes through the word in sequence. Using post-it notes to mask words is a really effective technique. Makes your teaching of reading with the whole class interactive. So moving on to the second axis of the simple view of reading and focusing now on language comprehension. In the primary framework for literacy and mathematics, it's strand 7 and strand 8 that encompass this aspect of your teaching. Strand 7, understanding and interpreting texts, and strand 8, engaging and responding to texts. And we're going to see a video extract of a Year 2 teacher who's using this book, Grace and Family, another story about Amazing Grace. While you're watching this extract, I want you to look out for two things. I want you to look at the aspects of that model that we spoke about earlier and map what you see onto the model. But I also want you to think about, if this was your Year 2 class, what would you be planning to teach them next? The lecture today finishes with a focus on the language comprehension aspect of the simple view of reading. We're using a Year 2 teacher who's showing the model of teaching literacy which we've used with our students throughout the course, and I'm hoping they're able to recognise in practice the theory that we've been introducing to them. We use a lot of video extracts because that enables us as lecturers to bring the classroom onto the campus and enable the students to look critically at teachers working with children. So bear this model in mind. Think about this model, think about what you see the teacher in this Year 2 class using from this model, and also what you would teach next.
Work for a map.
In this extract, the teacher's using a range of interactive techniques to prepare the children for the writing she wants them to do later on. The aim is to promote a really deep engagement with the text that she's chosen and with the characters in that text.
Last year I was involved in the whole Power of Reading project, and that basically completely changed my whole idea of how I teach literacy.
We had a look at a book all about Amazing Grace, and then we thought about everything we found out about Grace.
The first thing I did was thought about what we'd learnt about Grace as a character, and we went over all the things that we know about her.
We found out she likes making up stories, she likes watching the ballet, and she has lost her 2 front teeth. How did we find that out?
Because you can tell in a picture.
You can see it in the picture, can't you? Now, today, we're going to read another story.
And then we read the first 2 pages of Grace and Family. It's one of the books which is recommended by the Power of Reading project. The books which they have recommended have always really engaged the children and got them thinking about a lot of issues and ideas that come out of books.
Grace lived with her ma and nana and a cat called Pawpaw.
Using text like this helps you to deal with a lot of the issues which the children might have inside their heads but have maybe never really had an avenue or a voice to say it.
Guess what? Your papa sent the money for 2 tickets to visit him in Africa for the Easter holidays. Nana says she'll go with you if you want. She had made up so many fathers for herself, she had forgotten what the real one was like. Okay, I'm not going to read anymore.
I think that's a great way to use a text, is that you don't dive in and use a whole book straight away, because it means that the children are also really looking forward to what's going to happen next.
Does anybody have any ideas as to what we could add now to our chart? Have we found out anything new about Grace? Rachel?
Her papa split up with her mum,
Brilliant.
And then he went back to Africa. Her father lives in Africa, so she doesn't really get to see him. She had 2 tickets from her father to go to Africa.
I wrote a really short diary entry as Grace before she got the tickets from her father. And it just was a way of getting the children to start thinking about getting into role and writing diary entries. Because although we've done it before this year, it is a relatively new idea for them. So I wanted to show them a model of it first before we started to write our own. We thought about how Grace would be feeling getting the plane ticket, and the children were put into pairs.
One of you is Ma, and one of you is Grace.
And they were reenacting the moment when Grace's mum gave her, or her ma gave her the ticket.
How would she be feeling inside about getting this ticket. I want you to also show me on your face how you're feeling.
Looking around the room, you could really tell that the children were thinking about it a lot just by what they were doing with their faces.
Feeling very shocked.
I think using the plane tickets in the picture was a good way of starting them off, getting them to think about it, actually doing something that was happening in the story. So how's she's feeling about going to visit her dad in Africa?
Happy, shocked, happy, bit sad, excited, a little bit confused.
Confused, what a great word.
So, what would you teach next to this Year 2 class? You've got 1 minute to tell the person next to you what you would do as that Year 2 teacher.
Well, I think what I would do is, they've done the writing together, haven't they? Yep. And they did work on it together, so you could then move them on forward to write independently, write their own independent diary.
They've done shared and the role play.
They've shared it, they've role played it, so now they're ready to
Independently
write.
Thanks, everyone. Tanya, tell us what you might teach next.
Well, we were just saying that they've worked together and they've worked on doing the diary entry together and role-playing it. And I would think I'd probably move to, they could independently write their own entry for the diary, working on that.
Very nice. Thank you very much, because the children already know that genre, that text type, so they can focus now in more detail about the message that they want to put into the diary, because they're not caught up in the form. Thanks very much. So to finish off, to summarise, we've got lots of research now that tells us that successful teachers of communication, language and literacy and English use high levels of interaction in their teaching. We've tried to demonstrate today to you a range of interactive techniques for you to use. David Ray from the University of Exeter, when he did this work about successful teachers of literacy, talks about the importance of embedding your teaching in meaningful texts. We know that the best teachers of English and literacy and communication, language and literacy are teachers who know a lot about children's books, get a buzz about children's literature going in their classroom. You've also got to have confidence and depth of subject knowledge, and that's been the aim of this session today, to deepen your subject knowledge. So thank you all for your contributions. And thank you, Sheena, for being nice to me. Brilliant. Excellent. I hope the students today take away the key message that literacy is central to the primary curriculum. Everything that primary teachers do is predicated on children's ability to speak and listen and to read and write. And we want the next generation of teachers to be really skilled at teaching, reading, writing, speaking and listening. If teachers are not knowledgeable about the process of reading, there's a tendency that they're merely technicians, rather than really understanding the process and being able to respond to children's individual needs in relation to learning to read.